Boom! What's up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. We are going to be unpacking something that is so important: raising children into the world, maximizing our own happiness and our own potential, and then helping bring that to everyone around us in our community and the world. We have an epic guest to do this with today, Gabi Jubran. What's up, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been great coming. Just even chatting before this. You know?
Yeah, it's been super great. We've been talking about so many different aspects to this conversation, and here we are now actually able to bring it on video to the audience. So, holy cow. All right, parenting intentionally. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance here, and I love how you're bringing this to the world with Happi. It's been a year.
Yeah.
H-A-P-P-I.
H-A-P-P-I.
Helping awesome parents parent intentionally.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the acronym.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think the acronym in and of itself actually explains all the details that you need to know. It's like, well, what are we doing? Helping. Who? Awesome parents. Because you are enough to begin with, and you're awesome. Like, good job for getting this far, right, in life. Yeah. How are we helping? By parenting intentionally. When? All the time. Where? Anywhere. Why? Because of happiness, right? So it kind of encompasses everything, both that I want this message to be about, but it's also a great reminder to myself. It's almost like a way of guiding me back to my own happiness and my own set of values that I believe in.
I wonder what is sort of, you know, the most important aspect of this that you were teaching me about earlier is kind of the oxygen mask analogy. You gotta really be able to help yourself and maximize your own happiness and potential first, and then really be able to help someone else like your child.
Right. Yeah, that's, I think the core of the message is to really reflect on what it is that you truly value, and then to really be more intentional about designing your life in alignment with those values. The kid ultimately learns from how it is that you're being in the world, and not necessarily based on what you say, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah. Okay, so this has been passed down from Picasso over time, this intentionality, and even prior to that too, it's just the intentionality of retaining the child through adulthood. Retaining that childhood like curiosity, love, essence, passion, curiosity, etc. And we kind of lose that perception over time. A lot of that is the pressures of the socioeconomic and political machinery of society.
Yeah.
And so if a parent loses their relationship with that inner curiosity, that inner child, then it's hard for them to keep it with the child that they have.
Right. And it's really hard to be empathetic and have compassion for your kid and what they might be going through. Because like I was saying before, you know, childhood is inherently traumatic, right? We're very vulnerable and impressionable and insecure about a lot of things. And over time, you know, the more these things kind of pile up on us, we're just thinking, yeah, I just want to get out of this place. I want to grow up. I don't want to have to deal with this anymore. And I think, like you're saying, sort of these socioeconomic burdens that we have and conditioning on society about who we should be and not necessarily who we feel like we must be as individuals. Yeah, you lose sense of that inner curiosity and really what makes me me. You know, it's good to be different. And I think another way of saying that is the system is designed to take away your sense of self and your agency, right? And you know, that is the case basically as early as we're able to like really receive information, and it's reinforced in things like the education system, right? You know, you're being compared against all of your peers. It's a competition, and the competition is based on these things that we can objectively quantify about you being smart in this one particular way, right? And it requires lots of memorization and regurgitating information. And failing is the worst possible thing that you can do. And if you don't learn in this particular way, sorry, you're out of luck, right? And so, sort of as a result of that, you look at the way that technology is designed, right? These kids, when is it that they actually feel like they have agency? Because their parents are telling them what to do, their teachers are telling them what to do, coaches are telling them what to do, society is telling them what to do. Well, when I'm on this device, I have this perception of agency, right? I feel like everything that I'm doing here is like my decision, and I'm making it, right? I can connect with my friends, I can play a bunch of games, I can learn about a whole bunch of stuff that I never would have otherwise learned about. But if I don't really develop a strong sense of self and what it is that I value, well, I'm going to get validation from how many likes my picture got on it, because everyone wants to be cool and fit in and belong to something much bigger than themselves. And, these kids get the message that doing what's popular is cool, and, as cliche as it is, being yourself is cool, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of get to this point where we realize that, sometime after we go through school, and then we go through the process of unlearning everything that we learned, right?
Yeah, there's two really crucial keys there that I want to touch on. First one is the trauma that you were talking about, kind of the, we just finished a conversation with Ron about it, just the sort of the childhood that people go through, where parents are not always just blissful angels throughout developing a child into the world, and because of that we accrue some sort of traumas that then we carry on through the later parts of our life, that then we don't integrate well, and if we don't integrate well, then we can't really be our full self, and we also can't really raise a child. So it's just this cycle.
That's why I'm single. Because I'm a mess. I am not going to be a good daddy. A good husband, a good anything. I am ruined goods.
That's one of them, is the trauma, and then doing our best to avoid as much of that, or integrate it currently and avoid as much of that, move forward. And then the other one was a sense of agency. We are being told from every direction possible what to do, and then rarely do we get sort of the ability ourselves to decide what we want to do, what fulfills us, we have the tools and resources in front of us provided to do that. So. Right. Yeah, so then there's that, and now we had your logo up a moment ago. I wanna touch on this because the turtle's your spirit animal.
Yeah.
and tell us why the turtle is part of the logo, why it's a spirit animal.
Yeah. So I've always felt very connected to sea turtles, and the more I travel places, I see that it's part of every culture. I'll go buy a sea turtle, wherever I go. And, the realization that I really came to is, more than the surface level of their chill and they swim with the current, they don't really have any enemies. It's a reminder to me of how grateful I am for my life, because a lot of these sea turtles, when they hatch from the sand, they instinctively know to swim to the shore, but they don't all make it. They get snapped up by birds or crabs or whatever it might be. And so it's a reminder of how grateful I am for my life, because I'm one of the turtles that made it to the shore. So if you look at the logo here, the sand represents remembering where you came from. The water represents having an intention for the future. But really, where the water and the sand meet, the shore, that represents presence. Oftentimes in mindfulness and meditation practice, you'll hear that. Because there's no third thing. It's just where the water and the sand meet and fluctuates based on the tide. So the further that you get away from the shore, either in this direction towards the sand, that's like getting lost in the trauma, the self-doubt, whatever sort of negative things you have from your past that you're holding on to. And the further that you get away from the shore in the direction of the water, that's getting lost in the anxiety of the future. And so it's important to remember where you came from and have an intention for the future, but really when you are present, that is when you have your happiness. And in the center, that's the moonlight. which is the natural light that guides you to the shore. All of these sea turtles, about 98% of them or something like that, are buried at night. So when they hatch, they use the moonlight to guide them to the shore. Totally. So that represents your intuition. And, you know, the tagline, "Don't worry, be," you know, of course, gives credence to "Don't worry, be happy." But it's written in children's handwriting because children innately, they know what they're interested in. They're really present all the time. Whatever emotions they're experiencing, they like feel those feelings, right? They let it pass through them, and then they're back to their jolly old selves, right? They're as close to like being a human as you can be, like right away, right? And then over time, we kind of condition them into like these different ways of believing things, these belief structures, you know, this one idea of success and how to be in the world. And they lose sense of themselves over time. And, you know, whether or not they actually have agency is up to them. Ultimately, they can make that decision.
I'm really excited to talk about conditioning with you.
Yeah.
Let's wander ourselves over to conditioning in a moment, because this actually had a lot of detail and thought to it, and I really appreciated that. And there's the sand, there's the water, there's the moonlight, there's the balance, there's the child handwriting, there's, like you said, the moment of presence for every single child. It's so human to be right there in the present. They're rarely ever wondering, what do you want to be when you grow up? What, I don't know. Yeah,
totally.
Like, I'm here right now. That's their thing in so many ways, and that's so interestingly fascinating. It really is, the childhood presence.
And, you know, it's a reminder to the parents, like, look, you have a lot to learn from these kids as well, right? Everyone's a student and everyone is a teacher. One of the values of Happi. And really, it's about bringing an openness and a curiosity and a beginner's mind to things. And even if you don't agree with someone, maybe you have something to learn about yourself. You know, ultimately, I believe all education is self-education. Because I could be spouting the greatest wisdom to you, but if you have no way to connect it back to yourself and your experience, then you're not going to remember it. And what good is it to you? Right?
Yeah. So how does one be themselves?
Yeah. It's hard, right? And I can go into like sort of that framework of you know, how I think society functions right now.
Let's do it. Yeah, the conditioning.
The conditioning. I think it's important to go into that, and then we could talk about how it is that you actually be yourself.
Let's do it.
So, you know, basically the way that we're conditioned in our societies, we're told you need to do something so that you can have something, and eventually one day you can be something. And it's this perpetual carrot or stick type of extrinsic motivation along the ladder of success, and what you think success might look like. And we kind of do this unconsciously, right? Eat your dinner so you can have dessert. Get good grades so you can get into a good school. Get a job so you can make money. Do well in that job so you can get a promotion, right? And it starts from this place of you are not enough as a person to begin with, and you constantly need to strive towards something in order to prove your worth. Now, I understand why we structured things in that way, because, you know, how are we going to get people to build the sewer system without some sort of extrinsic motivator, right? You know, maybe there was one person who was really intrinsically motivated to build the sewer system, but like I don't think we had quite the gang of people it needed to build it out, right? So you needed some form of extrinsic motivation to get to the point that we're at now. I don't really think that's quite as much the case, especially with a lot of these exponential technologies that we're working on towards the future. And, you know, if you look at a kid, you know, we ask them what they want to be when they grow up. We don't even know what the jobs of the future are. So why are we asking them that question, right? You know, really.
Is that what they say? Do they say that when you ask them, little kids, that they don't know? What?
Sometimes they say they know, sometimes they say they don't. But that's a good point, is with the one kid that answers, listen, exponential technology, it's unpredictable, okay? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. They're like 5 years old.
That would be amazing. Yeah, you know, I meant it more from the perspective of like, why are we asking that question, you know?
Yeah.
I think there are really two questions that we want to ask here, which is, One, what problem do you want to solve? What either impacts you on a personal level that you feel like you want to do something about it, or something that you're so like innately curious about that you just like have to keep thinking about it. Like you're like, this is what I really turns my mind on, right? So I guess it's not two questions, but really it's what problem do you want to solve? And it goes down like sort of those two schools of thought. Like this either affects me on a personal level, or I'm just innately curious about it, or the combination of those two.
This reminds me a lot of hierarchy and the pressures, the economic and social pressures that push us to want to strive for more on the hierarchy. Something about it, like you were saying earlier, is really powerful because it motivates and inspires us to go and make something of our time in this world.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't really help us realize that we are already absolutely beautiful as we are right when we are here on the earth.
Totally.
And then we have this process of wanting to become better over time and work on ourselves.
Who told you that we're all perfect? Who's talking?
Not
Rogers.
perfect.
Really?
Yeah, not perfect.
Yeah,
Mr. Rogers.
Mr.
We're
Rogers.
perfectly imperfect.
Right,
Perfectly
all right.
imperfect.
Yeah, well, yeah, fair enough. But
We're all beautiful
shit, that's
when
just
we're born,
not
yeah.
the way it is. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah, it's also tough to give these absolutes, these binaries about being totally, everyone is beautiful. Well, oh my gosh, beauty's in the eyes of the seer.
In its own way. Do you know that song from way back?
Who sings that song?
Ray Price, I think. Everything is beautiful. I'll get back with you on that. Go back to the sorry.
Yeah, no, that's
Sorry,
okay.
sorry.
So then some of the pressures, yes, they do propel people forward. I think that's actually quite nice that we are propelled forward through that, but at the same time, it doesn't help so much with just our ability to relax and be ourselves, and then also to really understand that we are beautiful as we are, and not that we have to go through, like you said, we have to go to do something to have something to be something. Yeah.
Yeah. What I say is like, why even aspire to be something in the future when you can learn to be yourself in the present?
Yeah,
Right?
learn to be yourself in the present, yeah, and get really good at that.
Yeah. And, going back to that framework of do something so that you can have something, it's, in many ways, it's kind of wired through scarcity, right? Because, like, the earliest humans had to do things so that they can have things to survive, right?
Yeah.
They had to find water and shelter and food, right? So, like, in a way,
Yeah.
it is part of who we are, that idea of doing something so that you can have something.
And that's really important because you would die if you didn't have the water or the food. Yeah.
Totally.
So then that's the scarcity, poverty, addiction, these different sort of mentalities that drove us to want to live and not suffer, and then that's kind of the pressures that drove us forward. Those were important. They still are important.
They still are important.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to have your base needs met in order for you to learn how to be yourself and really start to thrive. But I want to get back to scarcity for a second here, because one of the things that we say, especially a lot around here, is competition spurs innovation.
Yeah.
Right? And kind of, it spurs iteration, which is a form of innovation. I made something slightly better. I optimized some function of this. And competition is inherently scarce, because if there's a winner, then there's definitely going to be a loser. And I think it's that sort of mindset that has led us towards this path of overconsumption and producing things that people want and not necessarily what they need, and telling them that they are lacking and that they do need to have something in order to be something, right? You look at all the products and services that we have now, like, buy this weight loss program so you can have it and eventually you can look like this, right? And this is what you need to look like, right? This is what society tells you that you should look like. Social media, again, is designed this way. It is a reflection of our current state of consciousness.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's the way it's designed. I don't understand. What's your problem? In order to win, someone has to lose. Some will win, some will lose. Some are born to sing the blues.
Ron, were
the
you born to sing the blues?
train going in. Yeah, I'm just saying. Happi, you bet.
It is. Society is a reflection of our consciousness, and then furthermore is the mentality is shifting towards abundance. The mentality is shifting towards prosperity, collective prosperity, deeper empathy.
Yeah.
And this is all fantastic. And movements like Happi, also like digital wellness warriors, like what you're working on, these are progressing us towards that mentality over time.
Yeah.
So maybe go ahead.
Let me finish the point of how we're conditioned, but really the way that I operate from a place of abundance, and really the way that I intend to operate Happi and digital wellness warriors is, if you're lucky enough to get out of the cycle of doing and having and so you can be something one day, most of those people realize that they're not happy, and it's because they don't want to be something, they want to be themselves. And so really the place that we want to operate from is be yourself, do things that align with who you are, and then almost as a side effect of that or byproduct, have more than you can imagine for yourself based on what you value as an individual, right? It's not an outcome. We like to think in outcomes a lot, but we're constantly evolving and we're growing as people over time. And so really the more that you key into what it is that you value as an individual and try to incorporate more of that intentionally into your life, the more that you start doing things that align with that. And over time you might think, well, that was great and I learned so much. Now I want to do this because now I have greater awareness through this intentionality that I've incorporated. So the question was, how do you be yourself?
And before we get there, just on what you just said, that if we start from a mentality of being yourself and then just doing what you love, what feels right for you, what you fall in love with, what you're passionate about, and building that into the world over time, I totally see how starting from a place of being yourself can get you to a place of abundance for yourself and for other people around you. Right. I like that a lot, rather than sort of maybe like being something. It's like be yourself, but also being yourself with a goal or an intention of like doing what you love and like what you want, because you can also get trapped in a form of consumption and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, so like let's talk about being yourself.
Being yourself. It's like obviously way easier said than done. Being yourself is hard, right? Because I think it starts from a place of loving yourself first, which is kind of how I got down this path myself. Originally it stemmed from watching my niece play with an iPad, and I was like, I love this being more than anything. And now she's getting sucked into a bunch of sponsored content for products, and I'm not okay with that. And in the process of having that realization, I was also like, well, if I love this being so much, how come I don't love myself like that? And that really helped me start getting down this path and being more intentional with incorporating more of what I want, right? Not just being a people pleaser all the time and doing things so that I can have things. So yeah, it starts from a place of self-love, but going back to trauma, it requires either coping with that trauma that you have, healing from it in some way, or using it maybe as a tool to help other people by sharing your stories and being vulnerable. I would say that it also, in some ways, requires physically healing your body. We get aches and pains all the time that are, little distractions, but really they're bits of information telling us, hey, I need some love here. Like, I need to, work on my shoulder. This thing is really aching me, right? Your body has this inherent wisdom, and it's also telling you how you can be more of yourself and be more open. And, a lot of the technology we have now gets us kind of hunching like that. We're at our desks, right? And we're blocking ourselves off to a lot of things. And so, a big focus of mine has been on posture and really healing through all the tension that I have in my body. I used to have a pinched nerve in my shoulder, one in the back of my knee, to the point where my leg would go numb if I was sitting in the wrong position or you know, my whole arm would go numb for a few seconds and have to like shake it back into feeling. That was it telling me like this needs to be addressed right away. And so I did. I focused a lot of time on physically healing, mentally healing, emotionally healing, spiritually healing. And nobody's saying that you have to do all this now, right? You start small, right? Start with doing little things that are really achievable, little intentional habits that you can create. It still gives you the instant gratification that you're looking for.
Is this something that parents are really should be focused on, helping their children form these little small habits?
They should be focused on forming it for themselves
first. And
yes.
Then once they achieve that for themselves, then they can be that role model for their kids and then help their kids also. Okay.
Yeah. And don't tell them what to do and when to do it all the time.
That's what they do, though. You know, that's authority. They want to mold them in their image. They want to teach them the bullshit that they believe they bought into be the same thing. Get 3 jobs. I don't care what you do for a living. Get 3 jobs.
Totally. And, you know, look at the place that we're in now, right?
Yeah.
It's clearly no longer sustainable for our own individual well-being or our collective well-being or the well-being of this planet, right? And, you know, so many people are unhappy because they're forcing themselves to do things that are not fun, right? And they don't enjoy.
A whole third of our lives for some people is just not fun.
No.
Half of our waking hours. You only get 16 waking hours. Can you imagine spending 8 doing something you hate?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that in itself is the problem.
It is. But even in doing those things that you hate, you can still, in many cases, be more intentional about how you are able to throw in little bits of yourself into that work, you know?
But then we really need the long-term transition for ourselves into something of 8 hours a day that we love.
Totally. I completely agree. You know, my thinking behind this is, you know, right now, capitalism and technology's incentives are fundamentally misaligned with our well-being.
And how would you fix that?
Well, I believe we have the power to realign those incentives by being intentional about prioritizing our own well-being and taking care of those that we love.
Okay, I think I finally am getting it all connected. It took me a little while to get it all connected.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually the first key of the whole conversation that we've been having the last couple of hours is the word intention.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. And then I'll let you get to the definition in a moment. Actually, give me the definition first, and then I'll go where I want to go with it.
Yeah, and I have another point that I want to add as well. But I heard a great definition, which is intention is the pervasive force that guides our awareness.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So, okay, so we have this intention, and then we'll get to what you want to say after that. This pervasive force that guides our awareness, and then the intention, the first form of intention must be at a mirror. And then we look at ourselves, and then we intend to be ourselves, our love, our care towards ourselves. That body work that you were talking about for your pinched nerves, a human can't function with pinched nerves. You have to literally take time off of life so that you can focus on your body, so that you can keep living. And then when you look at yourself and you see parts of yourself that you want to, maybe, package away, integrate some of your traumas, work on those experiences. Okay, so first intentionality is mirror, and then the intentionality becomes, what can I do bring value of maybe to the community or towards my kids?
Right.
So then that's kind of the second phase of things.
Right.
So then intentionality goes from intention with me, intention with my community and children, and then I'm the role model, and then I work with them, which then they are their own role models and whatnot as well.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you got to start with the inner work in order to inform the outer work.
Yeah.
Right.
I love your definition of intention.
It's not mine, but yes,
Where you
I love
heard.
that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We stand on the shoulders of giants. Where were you going to go after intention? You had another thing you wanted to
Yeah, I wanted to quickly touch on the well-being of us taking care of our well-being. If we want those systems to support it, create products and services that are in support of our well-being, then we have to build the demand for it by living and taking better care of ourselves, right? And we've seen some of this start to happen, with food, for instance, right? There's a reason that we have vegan and vegetarian options at restaurants. There's a reason that Walmart is now the largest distributor of organic food in the world.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean there aren't other kinds of ethical questions and concerns raised there, like whether or not that food is being sustainably produced on the land,
Totally.
right? It just means that it doesn't have pesticides. But
They're
that's
also-
progress.
They're also one of the world's largest employers after the U.S. and Chinese militaries. Then Walmart has, I believe, somewhere around like 2 million total employees
Wow.
across the world. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to get too far down that path because there's another bunch of ethical questions and concerns that we could raise there.
Yeah. Intentionality. Yes.
But yes,
Yes.
the point being, I believe that parents are the biggest agents of change, whether or not they recognize it yet.
They're the biggest problem.
Which means that they're the biggest opportunity for solutions.
Wow, that's interesting, huh?
Yeah. They're involved in the education system. They're involved in the workplace. Where they spend their money is really impactful. Whether it's capitalism or philanthropy, people vote with their dollars, right?
Yep.
People vote every day. And parents are also the most intrinsically motivated. They want to make sure their kids have it better than they do. And while they might be ill-informed or misguided in doing that, they do still want the best for their kids. And I do believe that unconditional love is the greatest motivator that we have. Again, that's how I got down this path myself. And when it comes to parenting and well-being, it is so intersectional. It sits at the intersection of all these other movements that already exist. It is conscious leadership. It is the environment. It is women's rights. It's social justice. It's mindfulness. It's emotional intelligence. It's digital intelligence. It's community engagement. It's all the things, right? It's connected to all those things. And so my message, again, going back to abundance, is, and I see this a lot, especially in the nonprofit sector, and I was talking about competition. We're all competing for this scarce amount of resources, which is just bizarre, especially in the nonprofit world, because we're all ultimately trying to achieve collective well-being, right? And building communities that are diverse and equitable and inclusive. And my message is, hey, let's all organize around a message of our well-being, and let's work together and make this pie way bigger, because the resources are out there. It's just that nobody in the philanthropic sector wants to give money to something that might fail, right? They want something with like a clear ROI to it, right? If I can donate $100 million and put my name on a building at a college, my kids can go to that college. I can cherry pick whatever students I want to come work for me. I can push my agenda in some way, and I did something good for humanity. Conscious, clean. Boom, clear ROI, check, 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 right?
Yeah.
Whereas when it comes to social change, it's not so clear, right? And it's hard to know exactly what is happening and how much impact is happening. And so, the way I look at it when it comes to something like Happi is, if we're looking to build an ecosystem that's working towards our well-being, I've planted this happy seed in the ground. And I know at some point it's going to grow into the most magnificent happy tree. It's going to give shade and oxygen, and it's going to have a bunch of delicious fruits on it. And I know that those roots are going to share nutrients with all the other things in the ecosystem, right? But when someone looks at it, they go, maybe there's like a little sprout or something there, I guess, right? But what they don't see is this massive web of roots that we've created underneath the ground that's connected to everything in the ecosystem, right? The mycelium, right? Which is where everything grows from, right? And it judges the health of the ecosystem. And so, I think in our focusing on what is objective, what can you quantify, what can you measure, what metrics are you following, we have lost sight of what is subjective, but also really important. How am I going to measure art or beauty or inspiration or imagination or storytelling or, so many of these things that make us fundamentally human, right? It doesn't mean we can't measure them, but it's really hard to do it.
Oh man, I love how deeply studied you are in this, and also how you're starting from a first principles view of things, which is intentionality. And then that builds into what Happi is and what digital wellness is. I love it. Okay, so walk us through this, because I know that you said that this is going to take a little longer to unpack than you think, but I still think it's important to talk about. Give us the juice and sauce analogy.
It is very much connected to all of this. This is something I've been workshopping with people recently, and the way that my mind works is I take a bunch of things and I'm like, oh, that's connected to this and that's connected to this. And then my mind starts weaving it into this tapestry of ideas to tell a story with. So juice and sauce. Oh man, I won't get into the whole thing because you can, I think, explain pretty much anything in terms of juice and sauce. But the way I got down this line of thinking to begin with is I overheard this video playing in the background. This guy said, you want to have the sauce and not the juice. And I went, whoa, that resonated with me. Why? Why did that hit me so hard, right? And whenever that happens to me, that's like my inner wisdom telling me, like, you need to inquire further about this. You need to think about this more. And I'm like, okay, well, how is juice made? Well, juice is taking something external to yourself, sucking the resources out of it. Typically, you're leaving some waste behind, and you use that to give you a temporary boost of some sort. So you think about how juice comes up in our culture, taking steroids is juicing. I gotta give my phone some juice. I'm really juiced about this event we have coming up, or something I've heard with kids my age. Ooh, look at that girl, she's juicy, right? I care about this one aspect of her that's giving me this temporary satisfaction and not the whole being. Right? And this all ties to the instant gratification that we've been talking about. Sauce, on the other hand, is this constructive process by which you're taking all of these different ingredients. You got to give them time to start melding together. You got to be really patient when making a good sauce. And I would also say that all the best sauces are made with love. Right? And maybe you have a memory of your grandma's sauce or a sauce that your mom made, right? It's like such a vivid memory associated to it, right? Which is really difficult to quantify and measure, right? Now you think about how sauce comes up in our culture. Someone's secret sauce or their special sauce, right? Something we hear all the time, right? That's their thing that makes them unique, and nobody can take that from them. Or maybe it's their competitive advantage. And someone who's saucy kind of has their own sass about them. And you can also get sauced, right? With your friends, go out, you get sauced. I would say that's like getting loose. But you can also get lost in the sauce. And that's important, right? There's a fine line and balance there. And that's when you maybe get a little too egocentric or full of yourself, too drunk, whatever it might be. And you end up with a plate full of sauce, right? Nobody wants to eat a plate full of sauce. Now, I would say there's some people who don't really learn their lesson, right? They keep getting lost, and they use bread to mop it up, right? They use money to clean up their mess, which I would say still leaves a sticky situation behind. I think most people kind of try to figure out, well, what's the right amount of sauce here? Let me start figuring this out. I want to make sure this is a cohesive dish that people are going to enjoy, right? I want to make sure there's substance beneath the sauce. It's not all just sauce everywhere. you know, I think I will get into this part of it. I'm just like trying to think of how much I want to get into.
Keep going. It's really good.
It's a good sauce, right?
Yeah.
And what I find, and it's really meta in this way, right? The more that I share it with people, the more they start adding their own ingredients into it. And they're like, oh, and that connects to this. And I'm like, yes, exactly. Thank you, right? And over time, that sauce becomes more rich and savory and complex, right? And every time I share it with someone, it becomes a new sauce in a certain way. Now, there's some people here who try to take a shortcut to making sauce. You know, they either don't want to put the time and energy into it. They're looking for something cheap and fast. Maybe they don't know how to put love into it, right? And so they compensate by putting in a ton of salt. And, you know, what I would say is that these people are all the haters out there making salty sauces, right? Lots of haters with salty sauces out there. And if you're someone who's grown up around a bunch of salty sauces, you're going to think that's what sauce tastes like, right? You're not going to know any better. And, you know, you're thinking, I'm thirsty, I'm dehydrated from all this salt, I want juice. And so it perpetuates the cycle of people craving juice instead of figuring out how to make a really good sauce, right? Now we can help these people. This is what we're doing now. We're focusing on how we can help people make sauce. And we got to show them what really good sauces that are made with love taste like simulation series, right? Like Happi, like Digital Wellness Warriors, right? And that inspires them to start working on their own sauce. They go, I didn't know you could make sauce this good. This is amazing. I want to work on my own sauce, right? But making sauce is really hard also, and I think that's where a lot of people get held up. You're going to fail a bunch of times making your sauce, right? I'm sure we've both failed tons of times along this path.
Yeah. Full circle is that making your sauce is being yourself.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's also to the point now where we have so many ingredients to make sauce with. Like you open the cover and you're like, I don't even know where to begin. This is overwhelming. I have this paradox of choice, right? And so you're going, I'll just go for the easy thing. I'm just going to have some juice. I don't want to make sauce right now, right? It becomes so much easier to just have some juice.
That's when you open up that Facebook or Instagram app, Twitter app, instead of writing or drawing or making a video or writing up something that inspires you. Yeah.
Or calling a friend you haven't heard from in a while that you love, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Ron. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
So what does this mean? Is this like,
this is a little time?
Hey,
This is a little time. Prepare to die. There's a big. What are those? What are the big guillotine comes down and chops your body in half? This is so bad. Yeah, it's so bad. Back to Happi.
So yeah, back to life.
Yeah.
Right. I want to make this point, which is, even once you figured out what your sauce is, not everyone's gonna like it, right? Does everyone love simulation series?
No.
No, right? Does everyone love Happi?
No.
No. I mean, my intention is for everyone to love it, but I know that's not going to be the case.
It's interesting. So your sauce will, you know, attract maybe one person, then 10, then 100 or whatever, and it might just stick at 100 and be done.
Right.
Sometimes it might get 1 million, and that might be great.
That'd be great.
Sometimes people will add ingredients to the sauce. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's cool.
So it is cool. Thank you. Yeah.
But again, it's being yourself. Your sauce is yourself.
Is yourself, right?
Yeah.
And
find your sauce instead of find your passion.
Follow your sauce.
Follow your sauce.
So, but, you know, you don't just make one sauce too, right? Like you make different sauces given the situation that you're in and like who you're
Happi
with.
is a sauce, and Digital
Wellness Warriors is a sauce, right? Culture is sauce. Music that you make.
Culture seems to have an absurd amount of ingredients in the sauce right now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of salt, a lot of that short term. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I really see how this analogy can be applicable.
Yeah.
I like it. It's the first time I've heard of it. It's a good analogy.
Because I think I came up with it. I mean, somebody inspired me with their own sauce that they created to get down this rabbit hole of my mind, right? And to be open to sharing it with everyone, right? And you smell that sauce and you're like, That's
It's
good.
good sauce.
That's a good
That's
sauce.
good sauce,
I
yeah.
want some more of it.
Yeah.
Right?
So you want your sauce to be so good that you yourself feel like you are being yourself, and also that that you're working on making your sauce better over time, and that you're working on
Right.
on helping other people with their sauces.
Yep.
God, this is ridiculous.
Totally. And I want to get to this point that I didn't finish making, which is it's okay that not everyone loves your sauce, right? What
Exactly,
matters
yeah.
is that you love your sauce, and you're not the only person who loves your sauce, because then you would be lost in your own sauce.
So that's a good point. So you might be there's a couple things here. So if your sauce is doing something harmful to society, then that's not good.
It's
So
toxic.
That's toxic sauce.
Yeah.
If your sauce is only loved by yourself, it might be narcissistic sauce, but it also might be like a 1%, like a Copernicus sauce. Like you might be thinking of something that's so counterculture that nobody else is thinking about it. And so it might take a really long time for you to get your first follower, your first person to like the sauce.
Totally.
Yeah. So sometimes having your own sauce that nobody else quite understands or likes yet, it just potentially means that it'll take more time for people to get it.
Totally. But you still have to give the invitation for people to try your sauce made with love.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And if people are like...
To the right people, because a lot of people that are trying your sauce may, in fact, spit it back at your face and actually... They might decrease your motivation to continue working on your sauce because of that process. So this is kind of the whole the golden information or the gold nugget or the nuggets of wisdom, the things that you carry around with yourself that are profound to you, and then if you go and say them to the wrong person, the person will just spit the wisdom in your face and say that it's not profound or important to you.
Sure.
Whereas if you share it with someone else, that actually gets you. A lot of times this happens after maybe you go on a profound meditation experience, and then you go and speak to someone that absolutely hates meditation about it.
Yeah.
And then they take everything that you said and they push it down. Versus if you talk to someone that also meditates, they'll be like, "Whoa, that was interesting about how it felt for you. This is how it felt for me," and then it becomes a deeper conversation. Yeah.
Totally. And what I would say is that person is salty, and really what they're looking for is juice. They don't want sauce.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So we can also view juice as the short-term dopaminergic hijacking of attention and reward and that whole economy of thought. And then the sauce is the long-term, the prefrontal cortex, the structuring of maybe your sauce over time.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to mention then that juice is still so incredibly important. You actually need juice in order to make sauce. Nobody is born with sauce.
You need juice to make sauce. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So what I say is, you might be born with ingredients, but you're not born with sauce. It takes consuming lots of juice, being inspired by different sauces made with love, and also trying a bunch of salty sauces that ultimately help you figure out what your sauce is.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
And on a very practical level, you still need electricity or gas from your stove in order to make sauce, right? That's a form of juice. It's energy, right?
Yeah.
And what we want is to get to the point where we have 100% renewable, clean juice.
Yeah.
We don't have that yet.
Yeah.
So juice is still important. You need juice.
Yeah.
But you want to find juices that are in service of your sauce, right?
That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. And so you want to find juices that are worth the squeeze, right? In other words.
Yeah. And this has been so interesting. Yeah, it's really good to hear new analogies that are applicable across one of the most important aspects of being human, which is being yourself, finding your sauce, your passion, bringing that to the world.
Yeah. And what I would say is really because I could go on and on about this, but I want to wrap up. Ultimately, what you want is to be a saucier. Do you know what a saucier is?
It's like a connoisseur of sauces.
Kind of. It's like they have them in French restaurants a lot. They're the person who makes all the sauces, the salad dressings, the roux bases for stews and things like that, soups.
Wow, you were that in your previous life, one of them.
Maybe.
For sure you were one of those. For sure you were, yeah.
And that's like
That's why you have
arguably
this
the most
analogy.
important thing, right? That's where all the flavor comes from. And so what that means is not only do you have your sauce, and it's amazing, right? But you're really cultured and you know how to make a bunch of other really amazing sauces that are made with love. And like most importantly, you can take the ingredients that you get in any situation and still make a good sauce out of it, right? You get like a mystery basket of ingredients and you're like, well, I guess I'm gonna make sauce, right? That's the only thing I can do. And I think the ultimate goal and aspiration here, again, I don't like to think in terms of like ultimate outcomes, but this is, if I had one, this would be it, right? Which is to be a master saucier. Mm-hmm. You are so good that you can now teach other people to make sauce, right? Yeah. And they still have to make it, but you can help them.
Totally, you can help them.
Yeah.
To climb up the mountain, you can always walk up with someone that's walked up the mountain before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I like that. That's good stuff. That is good stuff. Yeah. It is so ridiculous. The saucier. Yeah, so that's interesting. So then you can get really good at a bunch of different sauces, not only of your own, but tasting others, helping people maybe with the amount of salts in their sauces, or maybe helping people find out what their sauces are with the right ingredients, using cleaner juices. Yeah. Oh, interesting. The clean juices. Yeah. Maybe the clean juice is clean energy. Yeah. That's a good way to think about it. Yeah. If you're putting an IV in of McDonald's or putting an IV in of Instagram for for tons of hours every single day, that's poor quality energy, and that means that's going to be a poor quality sauce. But if you put in clean energy, maybe you put in working out, maybe you put in writing poetry or music or whatever you care about.
Gratitude practice.
Gratitude and meditation, yeah.
Sure.
Then that IV will lead to really powerful juices.
Yeah.
It's powerful sauces.
Yeah, sauces.
Wow. So good. Yeah, that ended up being as profound as I thought it was going to be, actually. I knew from when we started talking about it that, like, in order to actually have an analogy or metaphor that is so simple to understand because it's such a daily thing, but also at the same time it is such a deep-rooted instinct within ourselves to find who we are, our sauce. Okay, so yeah, you seem like you have another thing you want to say.
I have another analogy which is pretty brief, but I want to share it.
Brief, yes.
On parenting.
Okay, go ahead.
So is this a philosophy called the gardener and the carpenter style of parenting. And what we see now is there's lots of carpenters.
Planting the seeds instead of hammering the nail.
Yeah, in a way, yes, right? The carpenter.
I like that.
Yeah.
Planting the seeds instead of hammering the nails.
Right.
And we need more farmers and less carpenters.
Totally. Yeah. And there's that quote, right, which is like, if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem begins to look like a nail.
Yep.
Right? So yeah, you think about what a carpenter's job is. They have a vision for this house that they want to build. They're very meticulous about executing on that vision. They make a blueprint, they measure twice, they cut once, they can control every single variable, and they're thinking, once I finish building this house, I'm going to be so happy. I'll have built this thing that I envisioned, right? Yeah. And what ends up happening is typically one of two things. They build the house and it doesn't turn out quite the way they wanted it, and they're disappointed in the house that they built. Or they built a house and that's all it is. It's a house and not a home, right? The foundation isn't rooted in anything, right? And carpentry is something that is human made. It's naturally going to be imperfect, right?
Yeah.
Whereas gardeners, they plant a seed in the ground. And in the case of a parent, you don't even know what the seed's going to grow into. It's an anonymous seed that you planted, right? And you want to create the environment for that seed to flourish, right? Make sure it's getting plenty of water and nutrients and sunlight. You also want to prune some of the leaves and the branches, but from a place of love and not out of fear, right? For the future growth and flourishing of this plant. Yeah. And you also have to understand that there's so many things that are out of your control. And I think this is something that parents struggle with a lot, is that you can't control everything, right? And, you know, at the end of the day, you can't control the weather. There's going to be gophers underneath the ground. You got all these roots that are sharing nutrients with all the other plants around it. And some of them are good and some of them are bad, right? So ultimately, what's more important than you tending to your individual plant is the ecosystem, right? The community is ultimately what's the most important, because that's what's influencing them when you're not there.
You have to take care of your own sauce, your own seed in the community, because your node impacts the other nodes.
Yeah.
Wow. Good stuff. Good stuff. I'm so happy right now. With an I.
Mission accomplished.
I'll do that again. I missed the...
All right, let's get it in. 1, 2, 3. I love it.
I hate myself. I wish I was never born.
So
I wanted to be a janitor.
Let's work on that together, Ron. I have so much sauce to share, and I want to share it with you.
No, I kind of like being miserable. Don't worry about it. I'm all set.
All right.
Thanks. Yeah, well, you can give me a hug when we leave.
Okay.
Couple quickies on the way out. We like to ask these questions on the show. We're curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
Do you think we're alone in the cosmos?
Oh, that's really hard. I think they're just things that we are enabled to perceive with our senses.
Yeah.
Right? I think there are many layers of consciousness, and you know, maybe some kids have access to some of these things and we just don't know because we condition them into like, this is our perception of things.
Totally.
Right? And this is what you need to think, and this is what you believe, right? So
oh, what was it? What was it? A grandmaster chess player or something said that I can train my kids to become the world's best chess players. I can train them to become the world's best pickpocketers. I can train them to become whatever. You can train a child's mind to become absolutely anything. And so when you said that, I was thinking, well, could you train a child to become the absolute best, like meditator or consciousness explorer, or ability to go past the third dimension into whatever else exists out there. Anyway, continue on the cosmos. Yes.
Yeah. Well, to add on to your point right there, it's you know, it starts off maybe from a place of extrinsic motivation. You can train them through extrinsic motivation, but ultimately they have to be intrinsically motivated to continue that path.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yes, they, at their own will, right, deciding that this is core to who I am and I have agency. I'm going to decide to do this, right, and go down this path. But yeah, going back to the cosmos, yeah, you know, I'm a believer in the divine, right? There is something greater than us that created this, right? Going back to the gardener analogy, nature is divine, and that's why it works, right?
Totally.
It's like the most intelligent design that exists, right?
Yeah.
You look at your body, you look at your mind, that's all part of nature.
You look at the trees and the grass and the mycelium and the animals and the waterfalls and the oceans and the moon and the earth.
Right.
Yeah, all of it. It's just, it's the most intelligent design ever, yeah. So what is that thing above? Because then we ask, you know, if you think we're in a simulation, so what is that thing that is above? What is that?
Man, I don't have the answers, right?
Of course. What do you think? What do you feel?
I'm someone who's committed to asking more of those questions.
Good for you. That's why we ask questions on this show.
Yeah.
We don't have answers. We ask the questions.
I don't know, right? And I think part of life is...
Speak for yourself.
I have answers over there. I'm smart. I'm smart. I have the answers.
I have the
I'm
answers.
not dumb. Not like everybody says.
Hey, you want juice, right? I got juice, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, something like this is uncertain.
It is uncertain.
And so much of it requires faith and belief in that thing that is much bigger than yourself.
Do you think this is base reality, or do you think it's a simulation?
Man, I really don't know. You
seem like you're on the fence. Yeah.
I am. I'm really on the fence.
Yeah,
I don't.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, he needs to be for all the things that he discusses and he's working on and talking about. He can't have an answer to these questions.
So that's why I'm like, I understand that school of thought. It makes sense to me. And, you know, that leads me to the question of like, why do we have deja vu, right?
I love how you said that, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do I know you? Yeah, and that's another thing. When I say you look familiar, there is a familiarity. You know, it's beyond this. I don't want to take the show in another direction. We've been doing this. We're already at an hour. But I'm just saying, we met before.
Maybe,
Gabby.
yeah.
Everything that we're talking about, some of the examples that you've shown me in your creative expression are too... I understand them too much to just dismiss as coincidence. So let's end the show on that. Really.
Let's do. Last question is:
right.
What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
Home, in whatever sense that is to you. You know, I think of, you know, if I'm going to change the way the education system works, right? I want to reframe the narrative around what homeschooling is. Because what are all the things that you call home or would like to call home? Well, your heart is your home, your body is your home, relationships that you have with other people are home, your residence hopefully is your home, your community, again, hopefully, earth is your home, right? So the schooling that we need to give is helping people feel like they're at home no matter what place or environment that they're in, right? So what is homework, right? Homework is the inner work and outer work that you have to do to feel like you're at home in all of these places, right? So the most beautiful thing is feeling that sense of home.
Love it. Wow. Intention, parenting intentionally, helping awesome parents parent intentionally. Yeah. Digital wellness.
Which we didn't have a ton of time to get into today.
We definitely mixed that in with the Happi and also with some of the juice versus sauce.
Yeah.
That was a really powerful analogy that we spent a lot of time on. I'm really happy. Gabby, what a freaking pleasure it's been having you on the show.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And keep up the good work. We are all counting on you.
I'm counting on you.
We are. We're counting on each other.
You're lifting me up. This is part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right? And we're all sharing nutrients with one another.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We're crafting our sauces
our sauces. We want technology that doesn't just give us juice. We want technology that helps us make sauce.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. It totally depends on what those IVs are that we put in, what the energy that we put in is. Yeah, the IV can be a little scary. It's like what energy we put in, what juices we put in. Yeah,
we can just make it energy.
Juice in. Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. Let us know what you think of the episode in the comments. Let us know what were some cool talking points, what you want to expand on, how you want to expand on the sauce juice analogy, on Happi, on all these different things. Also, go and create, go and manifest your destiny into the world. Go and build, go create that sauce. Thank you to Gabby for joining us. Thank you to Ron for producing and directing. Much love to you all. We will see you soon. Peace.